Miss Alfred. Give a warm welcome to Miss Sylvia Alfred, former Deputy Chief Secretary. Those viewing and listening to us on all the social media platforms, ladies and gentlemen, PNM family, good evening. And Dr. Lawrence Hislop, please, we recognize Senator Lawrence Hislop, PRO of the Tobago Council of the People's National Movement. Ladies and gentlemen, we see what has been passing for governance on this island. And I am sure we are not happy about what is happening on our island. But brothers and sisters, do not fear or be dismayed, for the People's National Movement, it's on its way to restore decency, good governance, and respect to the Tobago House of Assembly. Tobago chose the PDP. They turned independent. Now they are turning TPP. And we are all ashamed of what was done on December 6th. But they had no track record of governance. So they rode into the assembly promising all kinds of lies. And to date, I am sure we have not seen any of the promises that they would have told us. How many promises have they kept? They promised greater accountability and transparency. We got lies, deceit, and audio gate. They promised ex gratia. Ex gratia say, if you see me, take me. They promised that no one will be sent home. Hundreds of Tobago House of Assembly workers are currently on the breadline. But the People's National Movement, it's on its way to restore good governance to this island. Take hope, brothers and sisters of Tobago. The PNM is on its way. We have listened to you, we have learned our lesson, and PNM is readying ourselves to restore good governance to the Assembly. So without further ado, brothers and sisters, I want to bring on stage the first speaker for this evening. And this speaker is the lone PNM standard bearer in the Assembly. He is the area representative for Darrell Spring Wim. He is exposing all the lies of this farly-led THA administration. Brothers and sisters, put your hands together and welcome to the podium the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly, the area representative for Darrell Spring Wim, Assemblyman Calvin Morris.
Thank you so much, Chairman, for the night proceedings, Councillor Petal, Daniel Benoit. Permit me to recognize in his absence our political leader, Member of Parliament for Digomartin West, and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Our own political leader, the People's National Movement Tobago Council, Mr. Ancil Dennis. Permit me to also recognize Member of Parliament for Tobago East, the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, and Member of Parliament Tobago West, the Honorable Shamfa Kujo. Also in our midst, we have with us our party General Secretary, Member of Parliament for La Hakita Talparo, the Honorable Mr. Mr. Tobago as well. Brothers and sisters, Party Executive Chairman, Mr. Larry Paul, members of the PNM family, good night. Brothers and sisters, I walked with a brown envelope, and this brown envelope You know I just get plenty of envelopes, right? But this brown envelope have with me some information I want to share with you. Some of it we would have spoke about before, and some of it might just be new. But tonight, I want to start off with this famous quote that says, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph in this world is when good men do nothing." Tobago, I'm saying to you tonight that notwithstanding all the madness taking place in the Tobago House of Assembly at this time, now is not the time to give up. Now is not the time to surrender. Now is not the time to lose hope. Rather, now is the time for us to stand up and be counted. Now is the time for us to say no to corruption. Now is the time for us to say no to the incompetence. Now is the time for you to join the fight with the People's National Movement and let us save Tobago now. If any time Tobago needed right-thinking citizens to stand in defense of decency in office and good governance, that time is now, and the only political vehicle is the People's National Movement. And I know, brothers and sisters, as we gathered here, the focus within Trinidad and Tobago is with respect to this audio recording. But before there was ever an audio recording, infamously called Audio Gate, there was a campaign. And there's also a saying that the way a party campaigns is also the way a party will govern. And we are seeing that playing out true to form at this time. Because you would remember, just like I brought with me this brown envelope, you would remember the Chief Secretary current would have waved a brown envelope high and wide, near and far, claiming that he had in his possession incriminating evidence against, at the time, the then leader of the People's National Movement, Tobago Council. I simply want to ask the Chief Secretary tonight, as promised, if he has carried that brown envelope with those evidence to the police, and if so, let him tell us when, where, and to whom. Because you would recall that is one of the major lies told during the campaign that allowed him to ride into office. But the lies and the promise didn't stop there. As Minority Councillor Benoit would have mentioned, you recall the promise that no contract worker will be sent home. You don't have to worry. Your jobs are safe. Over 150 contract workers have been sent home under this Farley Chavez Augustine regime. You would remember the promise to the contractors. It doesn't matter how you got the work, where you got the work, when you get the work. We will honor all bills. You all hearing what is the cry now? Ask the contractors how many of them have been paid. And you're hearing about an audit and an audit and an audit. Every time this Chief Secretary is in trouble, he hides and runs behind an audit. An audit to which only this Chief Secretary seems to have. Nobody else have seen the audit. He came into the House. He read out some kind of incomplete document in September. When we asked him to show, the members asked him for a copy of the audit, he promised that he will leave a copy of the audit with the members. And up to today, September to now, no one have seen a copy of that audit. Brothers and sisters, I also want to put that audit in context. Because you see, while the Chief Secretary talks about the previous administration spending over about $200 million on about 80 projects, this administration has spent a total of $165 million on 4 projects. So compare that. $200 million on 80 projects benefiting hundreds and thousands of Tobagonians throughout the length and breadth of Tobago. You can see roads, you can see retaining walls in the communities. Tobago contractors using Tobago workers, using Tobago hardware, using Tobago material. 200 million, and the Chief Secretary seems to have a serious problem with this. And I'm saying, where there are questions to be answered, they must be answered. And where there are issues to be treated, they must be treated. But at the same time, you cannot be castigating the previous administration, but at the same time, you are spending over $165 million on 4 projects. And you know what? Not one Tobago contractor. So I want to start with project number 1, because you would recognize that this Chief Secretary has the propensity to lie to Tobagonians. And we started off by asking the Chief Secretary, what was the process for these projects? And we were told that they would have gathered about a bag of 40 contractors and then chose from those contractors, selected from those contractors, the contractors to do the projects. When we got to the house and we kept asking, they kept ducking and hiding until eventually we cornered them. And when they finally answered, they provided us with a list of only 6 contractors. 6. And out of the 6, they identified 1 contractor as window dressing. And that contractor had reason to write to the house to let each member know that the information provided by the Secretary of Infrastructure is indeed incorrect, because that contractor was invited to bid on 1 project and given 3 days to submit that response, that proposal for a very complicated project. So the contractor did not participate. So in fact, there were only 5 contractors who participated in a pool of $165 million, and all those contractors were from Trinidad. And we kept asking them, but how you found these contractors? Because they are nowhere in the list of contractors that are properly registered with the THA. And the THA list of contractors have contractors from both Trinidad and Tobago. And hear what? None of those contractors were previously registered, had no previous relationship with the THA. However, they all of a sudden popped up and was doing works with the THA. But it doesn't stop there. When we looked at the project down at Pigeon Point, you remember that road down at Pigeon Point? $54 million for that road down at Pigeon Point. So we kept asking the Chief Secretary, you are saying that the previous administration was paying contractors for bitumen at $1,400 per ton. And you said that was inflated and corrupt. But we got the bill of quantities for the contractor who was issued this proposal, accepted. Contractor Roofing Company, Innovative Roofing and Construction Solutions. They sent in a bid for a contract which was accepted by the THA. And in their bid proposal, under bitumen, to supply, place and install asphalt mix and bitumen roadway, per ton, $2,700. So you are saying the previous administration was paying an inflated cost of $1,400 per ton. But here it is, this administration accepted a proposal where the contractor is proposing to charge the THA $2,700 per ton. almost twice. So I'm saying to the Chief Secretary, if what you are saying was inflated and corrupt, then it means what you are doing is corruption squared. And when I did the math on that project, brothers and sisters, that project cost $54 million, $781,820. When you compare the rates, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, across the board, what the previous administration was paying, you know how much that project would have cost? $36 million, $156,001.20. So that is a difference of over $18 million. And the question has to be, where that money going? Who's sharing in the spoils of that $18 million? And put into context, this is an administration telling you that they just don't have any money. So an administration that would have campaigned the previous administration, wasted money, inflated money, and you are telling me you are paying almost double more than what the previous administration was going to pay for this road? And I want to tell you, it didn't stop there. There's a road, Dutch Fort, and they kept boasting that they finished that road in 19 days. But the letter of award came in on the 5th. The proposal came in on the 5th. Letter of award on the 6th. Contractor on the premises on the 7th. $19 million. I got a quantity surveyor, reputable at that. And I asked him, look at this road. He came over, looked at the road. That road for $19 million, you know how much it was certified by a quantity surveyor for? $7 million, over a difference of $12 million. Let me add 12 and 18. That's $30 million already. The total of all those projects together, as I said, $165 million. If it was done using the rates of the previous administration, $109 million. You know what is the total cost savings? $56 million. Brothers and sisters, I am saying to you tonight that notwithstanding we have this audio gate, there are more gates that we must pay attention to. And to the people in Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, let us please stand to welcome our Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Dr. Christopher Rowley.
To build back a country, we moving with Joe and Jack. Come on, select. Tobago, are you ready? We rolling with the Red Army. Yo, for the love of your country.
Thank you all so much and welcome to this meeting. Welcome our Prime Minister. Brothers and sisters, as I was saying to you all and reading to you, these are the current realities in Tobago. 4 roads, all being spirited away. And we must understand what is the cost, not just the cost of the roads, but the cost to us as Tobagonians. Because what we have here is a situation where the average Tobagonian is being denied of those very opportunities that should be afforded to Tobagonians. Because when you look at it, previously, the contractors who were engaged in Tobago that were Tobagonians, they were employing on an average rate over 1,000 Tobagonians. That is at least 8% of Tobago's employment. Now they are only able to employ about 97 Tobagonians. So that is about 966 Tobagonians on the breadline. That is families you're talking about. That is over about 4,000 families being able to be provided for. We are talking about the hardware. These contractors from Tobago, they were supporting the various hardwares in Tobago when they get the work. These contractors that are coming up, they are bringing up their materials, they are bringing up their equipment, and they are even bringing up their workers. So, Mr. Trevor James spoke so eloquently when he was looking for Tobago voters, telling us about the economic deprivation of the Tobago economy when you utilize and services outside of Tobago. He coined it that you are building an economy elsewhere. So I want to ask Trevor James tonight, that $165 million that was given to contractors outside of Tobago, whose economy are you building, Mr. Trevor James? Brothers and sisters, and you know, as I close, I want to ask us something, because we as Tobagonians, we pride ourselves. We like to say that we are different from Trinidad. And we hear that statement all the time, that we are different from Trinidadians. But what different from Trinidadians truly mean? And I'm saying to us that if we are to really speak truth to what we believe being different is in terms of ideals and principles and that kind of thing, we must now walk the talk. Because what I can say for our brothers and sisters in Trinidad, I recall when there was this thing called Section 34. And when a nation became so incensed by an administration that would defame and destroy the public trust of the parliament by going in the dead of the night and proclaim a law to set persons who would have robbed and steal from this country. And we all became incensed. And thousands of Trinidadians came out and marched, and they demanded that the administration take action. And albeit the Prime Minister only gave us the Minister of Justice at that time, but once given the opportunity, Trinidad rose up and they fired that corrupt UNC. And I'm saying to you, Tobagonians, tonight, how are we going to treat with this situation? Are we going to accept the argument that this is no big deal? Are we going to accept that we would have heard a chief secretary admit that he and others were planning, conspiring to utilize state funds to fund their personal and political interests by running a propaganda machine, hiring people, some of them with no subjects, and giving them lucrative jobs? And are we going to accept that today? Tobagonians, I am saying to you, this is a situation that would test the integrity of us as Tobagonians. The way we respond to this, the world will determine whether we are in fact different. The world will in fact determine whether we are indeed people of integrity. Because here it is. This is a crime. This is a breach of the Integrity in Public Life Act. This is a breach of the Prevention of Corruption Act. Because this was a conspiracy of persons planning to misuse your funds. And you know what is most disheartening to me as a young person? To see the amount of young people in Tobago who would have gone abroad, studied, prepared themselves, returned, and are waiting to contribute to Tobago's development, and cannot get that opportunity at this time because they are telling them there are no jobs for them. But at the same time, here it is, you have persons plotting, conspiring to utilize the THA funds, the limited funds, to hire people specifically to come and blog and slander and launder and misuse the time to pay people using your money, that money that could have been going to someone else to really hire people to do productive jobs. So brothers and sisters, I'm saying to you, this is a matter that we must not leave alone. This is a matter that requires all of us to stand up together in one voice and say, Farley and the rest of them must go. They must go now. Farley must go. They must go now. I thank you.
Brothers and sisters, let's hear it again for the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly. No to audio gate. Farley and friends must go. 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 Thank you. So as we move swiftly along the program, I would like to invite to speak to you, to continue the conversation, the Member of Parliament for Tobago West. She began her political career as opposition senator, and she has been your Member of Parliament since 2015. I am sure that we will recall her St. James speech. I think that is indelible in our minds. She has been right there with you. That has been her mantra. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, put your hands together and welcome to the lectern the Member of Parliament for Tobago West and Minister of Sport and Community Development, MP Shamfa Kojo.
Shamfa Kojo, Shamfa, PNM people. So you must put your ex. We go vote in the West.
Thank you, my dear friend and sister Petal Benoit. It's a real privilege to be here this evening. I want to recognize and salute the General, the Chief, or Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Christopher Rowley. I want to salute also my sister in service, my friend, Mrs. Ayana Webster Roy, Member of Parliament for Tobago East. Or Minority Leader, the hardworking Kelvin Morris. He gets better and better every time, and we are indeed proud of him. And, of course, Ms. Petal Benoit, our councillor, who is his right hand, working hand in hand, delivering to the people of Tobago. Our General Secretary, Honorary Tobagonian, Mr. Foster Cummins, and last but certainly not least, our political leader for Tobago, Mr. Ancil Dennis, our next Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. We are all ready, willing and waiting to support and to lead you back into the leadership of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Ancil Dennis. All the members of the Tobago Council, or chairman, of course, all the members of the Tobago Council Executive, thank you for coming out in your numbers. It's a holiday today, it's rainy today, but Tobago people have to do our business, and PNM people have to do their business. So we're thankful for seeing all of you here in your number. I greet you under the mighty band of the People's National Movement, a beautiful and bountiful one, 67 years long, 67 years strong. We are the People's National Movement, still about national development, still about minding the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, strengthening our economic position, providing opportunities for every single citizen, whether you support us or not, building positive pathways for youth, leveling with the population and always serving them the truth. We are the People's National Movement. It's a pleasure to see you out in your numbers this evening. The PNM is on the move again. I said the People's National Movement is on the move again. And it shows that you are right-thinking people. You are not afraid to stand up. You are ready and willing to speak out. You are eager to restore order to the land we love, and you're resolute in your commitment to stand in the gap for the downtrodden, the weak, the vulnerable, the voiceless, and the meek. We are the People's National Movement. Right-thinking Tobagonians have woken up. I said right-thinking Tobagonians have woken up. And we are sending a signal that all is not lost and hope is not dead. That as much as they try to shift the moral compass and ask us to accept the unacceptable, we still stand. As much as they try to get us to believe that right is wrong and wrong is right, we still stand. That as much as they try to manipulate us with bold-faced lies, we still stand. As much as they want us to remain silent, while they thief like there's no tomorrow, in true Tobago fashion, we still stand, even if we have to stand alone. The People's National Movement is on the move again. Conscious, cautious, fearless, and focused, still in the business of nation building, creating opportunities for all and securing a brighter future for our children. We are the People's National Movement. The same PNM of Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, the same PNM of George Chambers, the same PNM of Patrick Mervyn Augustus Manning, the same PNM of the indefatigable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. And Dr. Rowley stands for intelligent and inspiring leadership, committed to building on our strong legacy. Every community of every crease and crevice of Trinidad and Tobago can boast of some project or program delivered under this Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley administration. From the San Fernando waterfront, to the youth facility in Moruga, to the sporting complex in Mahaika, to the newly refurbished Skinner Park, Diego Martin Regional Complex, Q-Rep overpass, and the list goes on and on and on. We in Tobago know fully well that we had spent over 20 years in opposition. It was only in 2001 that we were granted the ability to lead in Tobago, and we delivered like never before. And any Tobagonian who is honest with himself or herself can speak those truths and speak those facts. So when they tell you you've done nothing for Tobago, you have to know your history and you have to remember where you came from. We built the schools, we developed the institutions, the recreational facility. Last night, I was at Montgomery Government School playground. And I remember when I moved there in 1990, it was not lit. And there was no basketball facilities and so on. The People's National Movement put that there. And from community to community, Tobagonians can boast about delivery under the People's National Movement. Orville London did us well. Kelvin Charles did us well. Ancil did us well. And we are very, very proud indeed. Brothers and sisters, under the Keith Christopher Rowley administration, Tobagonians have seen development. Tobagonians have seen development. Because I tell you something, while Farley and they were in opposition, they were telling us that they would fix it and they are going to do better. It has been 2 years since they've been in leadership, 50% of their tenure, and they have delivered precious nothing. Twiddling their thumbs, wreaking havoc and stirring up confusion, from wet toll gate to audio gate. That's what Tobagonians have become popular for, brothers and sisters. We did not sign up for that. We did not sign up for that. And when we question them about their delivery, they try to harbor hate and try to cause confusion with central government to say that we are standing in the way of Tobago's development. They are still campaigning, but we in the People's National Movement, under the leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, we are on a mission to deliver. Whether or not we're in power in Tobago, we continue to deliver to Tobago. I have been a member of this cabinet for about 7 years under the intelligent and inspiring leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. And I have witnessed delivery to Tobago like never before. We have 2 spanking new fast ferries, not rented, not leased, purchased and owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, those boats cost us over $1 billion, and you would recall when we were procuring those boats, they were standing in the way. The UNC was saying that is too much money being spent on Tobago, but we made the hard decisions and took the necessary action and did what we have to do to deliver to you Tobagonians. Don't forget. Brothers and sisters, we speak about, under this Keith Christopher Rowley administration, a promise that was made over 30 years ago. And administration after administration promised us to refurbish the airport. It is under this Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley administration that he went through and decided to deliver. And without the support of the UNC and all the naysayers, and as much as they try to protest and stand in the way, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley pushed on through. A Tobagonian Prime Minister for the people of Tobago made a promise and delivered on that promise. Faced the odds, had to stand in the parliament several times to defend a $2.1 billion spend on the airport for us in Tobago. How dare we say that Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley has not delivered? Promises made year after year, administration after administration. He has stepped up to the plate and delivered without fanfare, without the plaudits of people. He put his shoulder to the wheel and delivered. That is leadership, brothers and sisters. That is man, brothers and sisters. That is Tobagonian. You know, interestingly, you hear Valley and friends in bed with the UNC, opposing everything. That's the same UNC that opposed the delivery of this airport project, and they say they love Tobago. That's the same UNC that opposed the delivery of the ferries, and they say they love Tobago. Brothers and sisters, we are on a mission in the People's National Movement, delivering to the people of Tobago. Unfortunately, you know, I heard in the media sometime yesterday, somebody called me saying, oh, you don't hear Wade Mark and they calling your name in this to see if I ask Farley to pay some contractor. I say, since when Wade Mark and the UNC take up Farley and them fight all of them in bed together, and what the UNC give them to rub their eat? And I said to the reporter who called me to ask me, I said, I have never done such a thing. And if Farley know that his story is true, then he would call names. And if you have evidence and information, take it to the police. Here you are with an opportunity to defend yourself and your reputation, and you try to tarnish other people's reputation, proving yourself to be a liar, a coward, and a punk. But we will not be distracted. We are on a mission to develop our country, and Dr. Keith Rowley is going to continue to deliver to Tobagonians in fine Tobago PNM style, supported by my sister, Ayana Webster Roy in Tobago East and Shampa Kojo in Tobago West. It is under Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley that we delivered large projects that would transform the economy and put Tobago in a place where it could stand on its own feet, strengthening our economic position. Regeneration of Roxborough. We transform Roxborough into a modern-day town. Brothers and sisters, let's speak. Let's talk the things. Administrative complex where you could access services you usually had to come to town for. You can now do it right there in Roxborough. Spanking new police station. spanking new fire station, all that development to Roxborough, making Roxborough the second town of Tobago under the astute leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. We also delivered the hospital. Thank you very much, Mr. Archer. We also delivered the Shervan police station, spanking new. They want to pretend they forget. Under WASA, we desilted the Hillsborough Dam, $64 million. The Hillsborough Dam was built in 1952. And I remember being a little girl in Mason Hall Government School. That's over 30 years ago, brothers and sisters. And the promise was made to desilt the Hillsborough Dam. And it took this, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, a Tobagonian himself, our Prime Minister, to deliver on the promises made many, many years ago. Brothers and sisters, we continue to improve the water supply for Tobagonians, delivering booster stations to Buku, to French Fort, to Corlan, improving water quality and reliability for over 3,000 Tobagonians. Interestingly, I hear secretaries in the Tobago House of Assembly taking the praise and claiming it. Where were you? We invite you. You don't even have the audacity to show up to represent your people. But that's the work of this people's national movement under the intelligent and inspiring leadership of no other than Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. It is under Dr. Rowley that I witnessed, Ayana and I, we went down to Cove and improved the capacity by 20 megawatts, $132 million spent, improving our capacity from 64 megawatts to 84 megawatts to provide service for economic activity. Economic activity now existing and economic activity to come. Preparing Tobago not only for now but for the future, to the point when electricity cut off in Trinidad, Tobago providing to Trinidad. That's under the intelligent leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. We went into Pigot Straits in Canby and provided lights to those people for the first time in their existence. That's the work of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. And we continue to do our work. Just last week, just a couple weeks ago, we came over here with Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, and launched the pipe-laying project. Yes, improving capacity for the people of Signal Hill, Lambo, and Lowlands. People's National Movement under Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, brothers and sisters. We are drilling new wells in Mary's Hill, and as much as they try to stand in the way, Dr. Rowley remains committed to the cause. We continue to press on. Because you see, they're trying to promote a kind of talk that, oh, we're in opposition in Tobago, we're not delivering to Tobago. In and out of government, we deliver. Because when you are in seat of Prime Minister, even if it's for one day, you lead. And that is what our Prime Minister is doing, delivering for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is this Prime Minister, you know, brothers and sisters, I moved home from the US, from going to college in the US in about 2008, 2009. And I remember at that time, Mr. Orville London was crying out for sandals, that would provide a boost to the Tobago economy. It is Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley who went to the end of the earth to bring sandals here, and to sit and to consult with the people and to showcase what they have to offer to Tobagonians, to generate economic activity, to provide opportunities for young entrepreneurs. As much as we argue about unemployment and too many people hired by the Tobago House of Assembly, Sandals was providing training and taking up your produce to utilize in their tourism industry. Watson, Duke, and Farley told us, no, it's bad for Tobago. It's bad for the environment. A matter of fact, Duke went ahead and told us, not now, let me wait until he's Chief Secretary. Duke never made it to Chief Secretary, but we got worse. We got worse. We got Farley and friends. No clue, no map, no plan, no policy, no idea, no key. None whatsoever. Today we have to deal with this project that they're saying going on in Kilgwin, that they're bringing some 4-star entity? Where was the consultation with the people? Where's the talks about the environment? You are not even in a position to oppose because the plan has not been presented to you. And what are they prepared to give to them that sandals couldn't get? You see the hypocrisy, brothers and sisters? You see the hypocrisy, but we would continue to deliver. So it's in that good vein that Dr. Keith Rowley sought out to bring the Marriott at Rocky Point. They tried to stand in the way of the Rocky Point project also. So once it's not done by them, they don't want a part of it. We are the People's National Movement, and we continue to do our work. Interestingly, when Farley went to ITB in Germany, the tourism conference, it was all projects. He made boast about the airport, about the ferry, about the Marriott. That's the work of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley under the People's National Movement. So brothers and sisters, even the marina at Cove, they don't want that. They now say they have a new idea to build one in Kilgwin. They're marking time. They're wasting time. 50% of the time already gone. They shut down the Goodwood Pavilion project. They shut down the indoor facility, sporting facility at Bacolet to try to tell the people that the PNM didn't care for them. You are standing in your own way. You are stifling your own progress. But we in the People's National Movement, under the intelligent leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, will continue to deliver to the people of Tobago. And these folks who speak about internal self-government and even calling themselves the government of Tobago, they oppose what we brought from the JSC, and they have no plan. So you've gotten your 14 seats now, and what? Still twiddling your thumbs, still doing precious nothing. They promise to fix it. This is not fixing Tobago. This is mashing it up. Brothers and sisters, we are still the central government of Trinidad and Tobago. And there still is work for the Tobago House of Assembly to do and for central government to do. We will not be distracted. Under the leadership of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, we are going to carry on and to do our work. Tobago has nothing to gain by the Tobago House of Assembly under Farley looking for fight and trying to wage war with central government. We are not a government of confusion. We are about cooperation and collaboration for the interest and the development of the people of Tobago. They came on the scene 7 years ago. They had all the plans and all the answers. Now you're in the driver's seat and you have no clue what direction to turn the key. Get out. Get out. People are crying out for jobs. People at Milford Court want the football field fixed. All the promises that you made, we call on you to deliver. We in the PNM, we continue to advance the business of this country. It's going to take you, brothers and sisters. It's going to take me, it's going to take the PNM to reignite some type of order, some type of normalcy. We stand here red and ready, willing and waiting in the People's National Movement. The PNM, brothers and sisters, is on the move again. This fight transcends political party. It's about dignity, it's about self-worth, strength, resilience, morals and values and principles. It's about everything sacred and sacrosanct to us. It's about what is near and dear and what truly makes us Tobagonians. This is a clarion call. Your silence would not protect you, and your inaction will not set you free. We all must feel some sense of responsibility to stand up, to speak out, and to do our solemn duty for the love of Tobago and for the love of our country. The People's National Movement is on the move again, not for the plaudits of people, but for the love of our country and our children. We shall not cower to our own demise, brothers and sisters. Get up and work. The revolution would not be televised. I say the revolution will not be televised. We need to bind together until Tobago is safe again. We need to bind together until we can truly sing our own anthem. Stronger together, PNM forever and ever. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. And we shall prevail. I thank you.
People in the West, are you ready?
Keep the applause going, PNM family. Let's share it again for MP for Tobago West, the Honorable Shampa Kajo. PNM is on the move again. Family and friends, get ready to go. PNM is coming. PNM is on the move again. I want to introduce to you, and Brother Pali, we are asking you to stand aside. The PNM is coming, and the person who will replace you is none other than our very own political leader of the Tobago Council of the People's National Movement, former Chief Secretary, Ancil Dennis. He is a charismatic leader, motivational speaker, former youth pastor, talented musician and cricketer, former Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, and your political leader of the Tobago Council of the People's National Movement, the person who will replace Farley Chavez Augustine. Put your hands together and welcome our next Chief Secretary, Mr. Ancil Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, permit me to recognize a real Tobago son of the soil, our political leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Of course, our Member of Parliament for Tobago West, Minister Shamfa Kajo, MP for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy, our strong and vibrant Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. We have, of course, visiting with us from Trinidad, General Secretary and Cabinet Minister, Mr. Foster Cummings, Chairman of the Tobago Council, Mr. Larry Paul, other members of the Tobago Council Executive, and I'm seeing as well some former assemblymen and former THA colleagues of mine, Mrs. Marcelin Melville Jack, Mrs. Nadine Stewart Phillips, Mr. Joel Jack, and even some from the Orville, London era, Mr. Godwin Adams, Mr. Gary Melville, and Miss Cynthia Alfred. It is indeed a pleasure to see all of you here. And last but not least, the Red Army, loyal supporters of the People's National Movement. Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on in Tobago? About a month ago, all of us, not just in Tobago, in this country, woke up to a very shocking audio recording in circulation. And I must be honest with you and tell you that initially I had my doubts,
because I said to myself, this cannot be the voice of our Chief Secretary, and this cannot be the voice of the Secretary of Education discussing and planning what all of us heard in that audio recording. And therefore, I awaited a response, and I'm sure all of Tobago and the entire country sat anxiously for 24 days awaiting a response. And I listened to it over and over and over. I tried to detect whether or not it was some kind of AI business, or whether or not some talented individual put some voice recordings over a period of time together. I even did some research of my own, until eventually I was convinced for myself that this recording had to be genuine. And therefore we waited for 24 days for this Chief Secretary and for this administration to tell us or give us some kind of explanation of what we were hearing, that shocking and appalling audio recording. And you know what they did after 24 days? After 24 days of hiding, ducking public engagements, sending the Deputy Chief Secretary to attend on his behalf, ducking Liz Williams, passing reporters straight, ducking their own constituents and the people of Tobago who voted for them. You know what they did after 24 days? They kept a funeral. Because there we had our administration, the people who the people of Tobago voted for and put into office, standing like puppets behind an embattled Chief Secretary, standing like minions, gloomy lighting, dark lighting, black background, as if it was a funeral. And I must say to you that I took the opportunity to listen to the eulogy, as long as it was. And after 24 days of silence, our Chief Secretary, aided and abetted by his puppets and minions, came and attacked Tobagonians, attacked Tobago businessmen, attacked a young Tobago woman, attacked members of the cabinet. He attacked every single individual. He did everything except explain to the people of Tobago the audio recording. And of course, those individuals will respond, but I want to respond to particular aspects of the eulogy. And I want to ask the director to run a clip for me, please.
Because they very well know the nature of these conversations. And there are two reasons. In the first instance, when you have an executive, you have to explore all strategies, including those utilized by your opponents. All. And let's be real, the strategy of bringing people in who will live on Facebook and do work for you, that has been explored before us. The people who are making noise from this program with Gavin, Waters and company, community partnership, what is it get paid to do? Community liaison. Not be on Facebook every day. That's what they be doing. And walking a ground, but on Facebook every day. That's what they get paid to do. But guess what I did? I closed it down. Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. Show me how much people we hire to do that kind of work. Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. Show me how much people we hire to do that kind of work. So evidently it was discussed, and evidently it wasn't executed as discussed, which clearly shows that it's a government that is working.
And what you will have to consider is finding a way to employ people on the THA side. Could be menial tasks.
We don't have to pay. Yeah, most of them kind of got away to Chanel, and we found that.
And most of them kind of get employed really.
Because, so of course, Misery love company, right? So he wants to now include the PNM in the foolishness. But I want to give PNM members and all of Tobago the assurance that no PNM administration in the past and no PNM administration in the future will utilize public funds to engage in that kind of foolishness. So tell Farley, leave us out of that. But you see, you want us to believe that they discussed the plan, but they didn't implement it. People of Tobago, I have some information. And I know there are police officers close by, but I want to give the police some leads who are investigating this matter. Because Farley Augustine and the rest of his team tend to believe that all are we dotish and that Tobagonians big, but we don't have sense. So he's suggesting to us that the people utilized to do the propaganda were only the personal staff of the secretaries and assistant secretaries. Now, of course, every secretary and every assistant secretary, like every minister of the cabinet, has the opportunity to hire a few personal staff members. In my time, in my experience, if you were a secretary or the chief secretary, you had an advisor, a chauffeur, a personal assistant, and a personal secretary. But here the catch. If you got elected on the 6th of December 2021, then I am putting it to them that within 2 weeks or a month maximum after that, all your personal staff would have been hired. This discussion, the audio recording that we heard, happened sometime in the middle to the end of 2022. So therefore, if at that point in time, you are discussing people to do propaganda, then it could not be your personal staff, because all of them were hired by then. But I want to point the people of Tobago and the police to some documents, because by way of memorandum to the chief administrator, dated August the 2nd, 2022, and the ECM minute number is 305, and the minute was dated the 3rd of August, 2022, this current executive council agreed to the creation of 7 additional positions called executive officer. Now, I don't normally like to come on the platform and discuss people, but I want to tell all you a bit about the Chanel, the name that you heard in the audio recording. Because I am putting it to you that the Chanel being discussed there is likely to be a Chanel Felix. And I want to tell you all a bit about the employment history of that individual. This individual started on short term in the Division of Education, May 2022. Now, during the eulogy, the Chief Secretary told the people of Tobago that she's a personal staff. And I want to tell all you that she was not part of the initial batch of personal staff members, but she came in with the 7 executive officers that were added sometime in August of 2022. I want all you to follow me. So she came in on short term in May 2022. And then by November the 2nd, 2022, her employment was approved. But not only was it approved, it was backdated. Because the date of the contract, although the employment was approved on November the 2nd, 2022, she was given a 3-year contract from the 13th of July 2022 to the 12th of July 2025. The salary is TT dollars $13,833 a transportation allowance of $2,000, and a telephone allowance of $400. That is the payment for going on Facebook and posting propaganda on behalf of this THA administration. So I'm putting it to you, the people of Tobago, that it was not part of the personal staff. I am saying to you, the people of Tobago, that your executive council went into the back room, and of course they want to blame the PNM. Who PNM could have sit down in a PDP executive meeting or a THA executive council meeting? Don't blame the PNM, because of course you have people who are among you fed up just like every Tobagonian of your wicked and vindictive behavior. So of course, they sat in their room among people who they thought were their supporters and loyalists. And they made a decision to go back to the executive council, because we need some people to do propaganda. And we will create 7 additional positions, pay them handsomely, and I am telling you without fear of contradiction that the name Chanel Felix is one of the individuals hired in that position. And that is the situation. So of course, we in the PNM are saying that we're not taking that. Because I don't know about you, but when I was aspiring at some point in my political career to be chief secretary, I looked at people like A.N.R. Robinson and Jeff Davidson and Orville London and those individuals of high esteem who served for many, many years, and they never had to answer questions from the police as far as I'm aware, and they were never the subjects of any police investigation. And those were the persons that I had as my examples. But I have 2 young children. And I don't know, but perhaps at some point in their lifetime, they may want to get into politics. And my 2 young children and your young children must not be in a position where when they look at the standard for leadership in Tobago, that Farley Augustine is an example. So I am putting the PNM Tobago membership on notice. We are not prepared to sit by and allow a criminal chief secretary who is under police investigation and supported by an administration. And I want to tell all you something about those other individuals, because your shame bag have to bust to go and stand up behind. Well, let me rewind a little bit. Liz asking your questions. And these are people who always talk to Liz. They used to call Liz for interviews and all, even when she didn't want none from them. And all of a sudden, Liz asking you a simple question. What do you have to say about the audio recording? And people passing Liz straight. No response to Liz. No response to the people of Tobago by extension, because they expect that they could stay silent and we in Tobago will just lie down and take it. Well, let me put you all on notice. We in the PNM are saying that we are not prepared to accept a situation where the highest level of leadership on the island of Tobago are the subjects of police investigation. And we are saying that as long as they continue to be on investigation, and let me put it differently, whether they are charged or not, we are saying that in the court of public opinion, based on what all of us heard in that recording, they do not deserve to continue to be in office and in positions of power and leadership. And therefore, they must go. Give me the documents. Documents. I want you all to focus your attention on the screen. Because you see, this chief secretary I remember a couple years ago during the campaign, he was boasting about how much courthouse clothes he have. Now, based on what I'm hearing, his former political leader carrying him to court. Tracy, our former political leader, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, have him in court. His administration, the EMA, took them to court. Contractors have them in court. I understand now that based on some of his statements at the eulogy at the funeral, another contractor is carrying him to court. Gavin Walters, I saw you at this meeting. Make sure you carry him to court. Because he was, during the eulogy, accusing Gavin Walters, a man of integrity, of sitting down on Facebook and drawing money under false pretense, defrauding the taxpayers of the Tobago House of Assembly or of the Tobago space. And I'm saying that is a serious allegation. And I'm saying to Gavin Walters, do not leave that unnoticed. So of course, I hope this chief secretary have a whole closet of courthouse clothes based on what I'm seeing. But during my research, in looking into the same Chanel, because I asked myself, who is this Chanel they're talking about in the audio recording? And I came up on these documents. Bring up the documents. Now what you are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, are courthouse documents. You see the difference with the PNM. We don't come and wave paper and make all kinds of foolish threats. We show you the documents. And if we say we're taking a matter to the police or the Integrity Commission, it gets there. So here we have this document, as you would see to the top of it, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, in the High Court of Justice, claim number CV 2021-02681. And this is a matter, the claimant is Chanel Felix. I believe that to be the same Chanel Felix that I just spoke about. And the defendant in this matter is Farley Augustine. The document you're seeing there is a judgment summons. And I want to explain to you what a judgment summons is. Because of course, when anybody carry you to court or they file a claim, you will be asked to respond to it. And on August 15, 2022, Farley Augustine was taken to court by Miss Felix. And the same Felix apparently. And the boy is so, sorry, not the boy, I'll take that back. The chief secretary is so irresponsible. He didn't bother to respond to it. So apparently Miss Felix, when it got to the point of December the 6th, 2022, decided that she will go and get a summons. And I want to read part of the summons. This is the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly being spoken about. You are hereby summoned to appear personally at the High Court of Justice, Tower D, Waterfront Towers, Rising Road, Port of Spain. And they have the information there as blank. But the part that troubled me the most is where it says, you are coming to be examined on oath by the court, touching the means you have or have had since the date of the judgment, which I told you before was August the 15th, 2022, to pay the said sum, the stamp is over, in payment of which you have made default, and also to show cause why you should not be committed to prison for such default. I am reading from the judgment. And the amount of the judgment, it started off on August 15th as $42,632.04. And of course, statutory interest was added by the time we got to the summons date of an additional $660. That information that I was provided with clearly indicates to us that the same Chanel Felix had or have our chief secretary in court, in the courthouse. So the people of Tobago, clearly, we have a courthouse chief secretary. But I have some questions because I don't have all the information, and I want to ask some questions to the both individuals, Ms. Felix and Mr. Augustine. What is the nature of this court matter? Secondly, was this matter settled? Did Mr. Augustine pay the $40,000 that the court instructed him to pay? Or was the matter dropped? And if the matter was dropped, was the dropping of this matter a quid pro quo for this job that Ms. Felix was hired in? And I will appreciate if the answers to those questions are provided within 24 days. So they have made enemies with even their own people. You win an election 14-1. And imagine the PNM lost 14-1. And we are here still standing strong. But the party that won the election break up. Political leader, he and his political leader at war. His own supporters taking him to courthouse to get money owed. He made enemies with even the business people in Tobago, using an audit to victimize contractors, refusing to pay them their money, refusing to even give them jobs on the guise of this audit. But I will talk more of that, I promise you, by next month around this time. I have some more information, but I can't tell you all at once. They have made enemies even with the public servants, victimizing public servants. As part of the eulogy, the chief secretary was even once again threatening the jobs of our public servants. They have made enemies even of people here in Tobago who they are expected to lead and govern. Over 200 persons who were employed in the Tobago House of Assembly fired. And I want to give all you a true story. When we decided that we were going to have this meeting, of course we went through the usual procedures. We requested the facility through the facility coordinator. It was not booked, and we went through the process to book it. Lo and behold, I got a call today telling me that some short man who is a secretary and who was a pastor trying to prevent us from getting this facility. And I want to ask them, all you know how this bill? All you know how this PVC ceiling get in here? All you know how this stage we're standing on here was built? All you know how these air conditioned units got in here? In here used to have fan and people used to be sweating in heat. All you know how these developments came about? It was under the leadership of your PNM administration. and therefore you want to come to play, you stopping a PNM meeting in a community facility. And of course, I am hearing that they're trying to now develop this new policy that community centers should not be used for political meetings. But guess what? Where did they have this botched process to choose the name for the political party? At the Shore Park Cultural Complex. So I am saying, for every political meeting we wish to have, we will be going through the procedure. We will be sending in the requests. Because if you could keep your party name, picking or whatever you want to call it, down at the cultural complex, we are going to have our meetings at community centers. And I'm saying the night if you want, because by now, you know it have a place for that kind of behavior called the courthouse. So as I close, I want to say to us that as PNMites and as decent, right-thinking Tobagonians, we ought to get ready for a movement on this island. Because we sat down and we watched them victimize Tobago people. We sat and we watched them victimize Tobago businessmen. We sat and we watched them fire Tobagonians, take bread out of mouths. We sat and we watched all of that. I am saying to you that I am not prepared, and you should not be prepared to sit by and allow this audio gate situation to go unpunished. So I am prepared, and I'm calling on all the PNM members and all right-thinking Tobagonians to prepare yourselves, because you will act and you will do everything within the law, of course, to ensure that we send a powerful signal to corrupt Farley and his corrupt friends, because of course they are the upholders, and the upholders are worse than the thief. And we must send a powerful signal that we are not tolerating corrupt government in Tobago. And the final thing I will say, because of course they like to come and say the PNM did it, and 21 years of corruption. If it had 21 years of corruption, how come you there for almost 2 years and you can't report one matter to the police or the Integrity Commission? How come with all the fake profiles and propagandists that you're paying THA money to do propaganda on your behalf, how come you ain't exposed 1 ounce of corruption as yet? So you ain't exposed no corruption, but you caught red-handed with your pants down in corruption. So I'm saying to us, we must not accept that. We must get up, get our Gideon boots on, get our loudest voices, and make our way into Scarborough or into Roxborough or up to James Park or down to Crown Point, wherever the march is called, and we must ensure that we do right by the people of Tobago and for the people of Tobago in the future. So of course, I want to end by thanking all of you for continuing to remain hopeful in the people's national movement. We are a party, we are here to stay, and we are preparing at this point in time to rescue Tobago when the people of Tobago will call on us again, which I know for a fact will be very soon. And at that point in time, we will rid Tobago of the Farley victimization. We will rid Tobago of the Trevor James corruption. We will rid Tobago of this bunch of imps who have no guts and who will not even hold their chief secretary to account. And when we do that, we all will say lustily, as we usually do, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Come on, PNM family, we could do better than that. Are you ready for the movement? Are you ready to restore good governance? Are you ready to take back Tobago PNM? We are red and ready. PNM family, what we heard tonight is disturbing. This is the first time in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly where we have seen a chief secretary would have brought governance, would have brought the THA, would have brought this island into such disrepute and shame. Never in the history, this one political leader, Tobago Council, this one beat back all cockfights according to the old people. This one is shameful. This is embarrassing. And PNM people, we have to be ready to take back Tobago and restore dignity to governance. So at this time, as we move to where the air is rare, PNM people, are you ready? We're not sounding ready. Mr. DJ, give us something. PNM people, are you ready? Are you ready to take back Tobago? Farley and friends, Farley and minions, your time has expired. Get ready to move aside because the PNM is coming. We are coming. At this time, brothers and sisters, I want to introduce our featured speaker for this evening. Please put your hands and welcome to the lectern our Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for Tobago, Gender and Child Affairs. She is walking the highways and byways of her constituency. Put your hands together and welcome the Honorable Ayana Webster-Roy to introduce our featured speaker.
Calder Hall, how we feeling? Red Brigade, how we feeling? 9 times undefeated Member of Parliament for Tobago Martin West. A son of Tobago East, Mason Hall man. Imagine the US President had to stand up in awe and watch my Prime Minister and commend him for his astute leadership of Trinidad and Tobago and the CARICOM throughout the COVID pandemic. Our Prime Minister, our leader phenomenal, our Republic of Trinidad and Tobago statesman and leader, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, our leader phenomenal.
Thank you very much. Tobago, from Charleville to Bonaccord, from Bagatelle to Palatuvia, one Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen of the Tobago audience, particularly those of you who have given up your partying tonight to come and be here on this PNM meeting. And those of you who are following us on the television stations, the radio, and on various platforms, welcome to this PNM meeting of national importance. I would like, before I go into my discourse with you, to acknowledge some very special people who are here tonight, many of whom either are or were in public service. I have here with me tonight the General Secretary of the People's National Movement, Minister Foster Cummins. And on the platform here, I have your two Tobago representatives, the Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mrs. Anna Webster Roy, who is a minister in the office of the Prime Minister, and the Member of Parliament for Tobago West, who is now carrying out her portfolio assignment of Minister of Sport. I also would like at this time to pay particular acknowledgement to the PNM Tobago leadership, the minority leader, who has been elected by the people of Spring Garden Whim. They didn't know they were electing the leader of Tobago in the assembly. But elections are important and voting is important. So on this occasion, the people of Spring Garden Whim gave us an outstanding young man. And he gets better every day. And supporting him in that lonely role in the assembly is Mrs. Petal Benoit, standing Councillor Petal Benoit. And providing them with that sustenance and guidance outside of the assembly chamber, the Deputy Political Leader of the PNM Tobago, former Chief Secretary Ancil Dennis. Let it not be said that there is not political leadership in Tobago. We of the PNM will have none of that, because in or out of government of our office, the PNM will provide quality leadership to the people of Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And with all the shenanigans, and with all the mathematics, I notice that 1 and 1 to make 2 is usually not mentioned. That the 2 members of Parliament for Tobago are PNM representatives for the people of Tobago. When you hear some of them talk, you believe that they win something that dispenses with and dismisses. Some of them keep talking about amending the Constitution. They don't have a seat in the Parliament to pass a motion or to ask a question. But they want to amend Constitution. And they mouth like Constitution. They never read the document. They don't know what it contains. But they ignore the fact that the people who speak for Tobago in the Parliament are the PNM representatives. But I could never forget that. I could never forget that. Because you, the people of Tobago, I came here as a PNM leader in opposition. And I ask you to give me your support. Give them your support. And you, the people of Tobago, the same way you selected outstanding people like Kelvin Morris, in 2015, you selected in the East Ayana Webster Roy to represent you. You selected in the West Chamfa Kozo to represent you, and it remains so until that changes for better or for worse. As a result of that, and elsewhere in the country, I had to take an oath of office. I don't know how many of you in this gathering or how many of you listening to this meeting tonight ever had to take an oath. Some of you got married and don't know the oath. In case you didn't know, that is an oath, eh? I see all of the shaking their head and say, no, 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 no. Understand something? When you go into that parliament and they ask you to put your hand on that Bible or that Bhagavad Gita or that Quran, it probably is the most important day of your life. Because you are saying in front of man and God that you will be true to the commitment you are going to make. And that is why I keep saying, for better or for worse, I take an oath of office. And the oath says that I promise to act without fear or favor, without malice or ill will. And anything you see me doing, understand that those are the four corners of my boundary. So you threaten me, I swear not to be afraid. You ask me for a favor, that is ridiculous, you're not getting it. And of course, I will not harbor in my mind ill will against people for having disagreed with me or for having said things about me. I would respond if I have to, if I choose to. But the hardest load to carry is that ill will and malice. And as a result of that, my record, I stand with that. And I stand with that. So when we lost the election, and some funny, we lost the election. The man who leads in the most powerful country in the world can't say that. You lost the election. You know why I can say that? Because I spent 3 terms in opposition. I could tell you, it's not easy. But it's a requirement if the country is going to go from strength to strength. The role in opposition is important. It might not have the responsibility of the day as the government, but opposition is important. I spent 3 terms there. And I could tell you, when you move from opposition to government after you win that acclaim of the population, you feel as though something good is going to happen to the country. Because our policies and programs, and we have that. We have that. Policies and programs and people to back it up. Let them say so. Let them say so. So when we come to Tobago in the election and offer you a new arrangement for the Tobago House of Assembly coming out of the Parliament in a document that we are committed to go to the Parliament and doing so and so, and you say you don't want it because they're following the UNC who opposed it in the Parliament. I didn't argue. The 14-1, you know where I came from? William Mackenzie was my partner. How many times William Mackenzie was the lone person in the Assembly until Orville London joined him and we worked our way back up that mountain to all 12 seats. So I want to tell all those prognosticators who believe that 14-1 means that the PNM victory in Tobago is an impossibility. No, it's next time. And the last election, with every passing day, the next one is a day nearer. And 4 years, don't count it in years, it's 48 months. 48 months. Months? Look, 1 month just passed. And you don't have a chief administrator. Would you believe that? You don't have a chief administrator. That is like the Prime Minister is in Trinidad, and he doesn't have a permanent secretary, and there's no cabinet secretary. Can I tell you something? With all the things the Prime Minister wants to do, if you don't have those officers in place, you can't do it. And you know, say God moves in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. I didn't plan to have any meeting in Tobago tonight, you know. I planned to come to Tobago, like now, to go to Clarence's birthday party. That was why I came in here last night. That was the original plan. I was going to come to Tobago, and I was going to go to Clarence's birthday party tonight after going up to my house, which I did this morning. And I'm going to rush back out tomorrow morning because I have to go to Parliament tomorrow. Tomorrow is Prime Minister's question time, so I've got to be back in Parliament by midday. But in the meantime, I see Tobago business from which I have been warned off going from bad to worse. And of course, I have been on my best behavior and my oath of office from day one. And you know when I know I had to be involved in Tobago business? I went to the swearing in of the 14-1 people. I had one. That's me and I had one. They had 14 and others. But as I've done before, I know you start to count from one, and you start to count from one, and you start to count from one. I went to the swearing in, and something struck me as odd. I didn't know all the people who were elected, but I knew most of them. And as they got themselves sworn in, I realized the vast majority of these people who were supposed to be doing the work for the PNM administration in public service positions, they were the ones who were elected into the assembly, you know. So you know what that meant? When Joel and them up there think them in charge, these people who were below there undermining them to the bitter end and had political ambition. And when the election was called, the majority of them, I counted about 8 of them that I knew, and it might have more, who were in fact in a position to do the work that had to be done by the politician. But if your people under you, walking about and telling people nothing ain't going on and you ain't doing nothing, and they want your work and they want the seat, of course you'd lose 14-1. But then I understood something else. Most of them had absolutely no experience in nothing. All they're good at is bad-mouthing the PNM. There are some professional PNM haters in this Tobago, and I know them by name. Because the first time we were in the 11-1 position, I had friends, in fact, even 1 or 2 members of my family, 2 of them in particular, 2, telling me that PNM could never come back in Tobago. One of them even told me when I was campaigning here in Tobago, he said, boy, if I won vote, because my family, you know, blood, you know, if a 1 vote for you win and for me win, you lost. Boy, that hurt me to my core. Because so many strangers were campaigning for me and with me, and my own blood told me that. That's Tobago, I know that. But I know we're counting from 1, and we'll got to 12 eventually, and we're going to get to 15 one of these days. But I recognize them at that swearing in that they need help. Remember I had come before in the 6-6? I called all 12 of them down to the Magdalena Hotel, and I gave them the benefit of my experience. And I gave them the offering of assistance in the event that they could talk to. If they had come up with any kind of arrangement, I told them, whatever you all come up with, the central government will back. Of course, they weren't able to come up because different demands were being made and so on, and then the back of the rules. Right? And the population chose 14-1. I have no problem with that, because I know in 48 months' time there'll be another election. And I understand. There's a friend of mine in here, a schoolmate of mine in here, we grew up knowing John Bunyan say, he that is dung need near fair no fall. When you're dung, you only up you could go from there. And tonight you are demonstrating that the PNM is ready to go up anytime, 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 anytime. So, what did I do as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to repeat that in Tobago. The oath of office that I took is to carry out the duties under the Constitution, which I read and I understand and I know, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And no amount of negative in my mouth in Tobago could deprive me of the authority of Prime Minister of Tobago. Because it is within the boundaries of the law that I operate. Not I feel so and I think so and I know so. The law. The law. So I immediately arranged for a block of ministers. If I wanted them to fail from day one, just deny them access to the ministers and the cabinet. And what do? I came here with the Minister of Planning and Development, the Attorney General, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Works, the Minister of Tourism, whole block of them. And we sat down for 1 day talking to them about administration and administrative matters. We finished at 6 o'clock in the evening. I gone upstairs. Farley don't talk to them because you want to know more. I don't know what time they left, but that was the nature of the meeting. And after that, I told my cabinet colleagues in the cabinet, I said, Tobago politics is a politics of the blame game. As soon as they stump their toe or Jack Spaniel sting them, they're going to blame you and they'll blame the government in Trinidad and Tobago. But we expect that. But do not engage in any battle with the Tobago administration. I hear they're calling themselves the government of Tobago. Let them do that if they wish. In fact, they could call themselves the empire of the Tobago. But the bottom line is, there's a government of Trinidad and Tobago, there's a responsibility for the assembly until the law change, and there's a responsibility for the central government. And we've been getting along fine, central government and THA. Getting along fine. Notwithstanding that they stood in the way of every single central government initiative in Tobago, but we still, led by me, who take the position that are not taking them on in their foolishness. Some of them never built a foul cube in their life. Some of them never planted an oak crow. Some of them never go by a parlor and buy a bread. But if you hear them talk, one of them say he building over Scarborough from scratch. Right? Well, I mean, another one say he going and build a city in Roxborough with an airport. The same one say, I don't want no marina down in Cove, I want it in Kings Bay. Another one say, you don't want no hotel down in Marriott, you want it down in Kilwin Lagoon. Now, you know, that's how it goes. But even so, it's still a free country. It's still a free country. We're trying to build a new terminal building down at the airport. We're losing business because the big airlines telling us, if you all don't build a proper terminal building, we're not going to come to Tobago. And what Tobago is lacking more than anything else is greater international tourist traffic. And while we're building it, they're encouraging people to block it. But we live through the blocking of the Claude Noel Highway. This morning I was traveling on the Claude Noel Highway and I was saying to myself, what really could have been going through these people's mind? To tell people to lie down in front of the bulldozers to block the Claude Noel Highway. What? But that's what we live with. So, I had a difficulty when the party that you elected disappeared and the people who were elected started to make new arrangements for Tobago. And I made a comment as Prime Minister. I mean, I am Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I take an oath of office to get involved in all the business. I could have declined the position and somebody else would take it, but I took it. And I took the oath in the Parliament, at the President's house. And I'm therefore responsible, and I see you going and doing nonsense and creating a vacuum in Tobago that could only make things get worse. And I gave a casual warning. But I get one buff. Stay out of Tobago business. But I wasn't, I was only in it within the law. I wasn't in it in any other way. So I take my buff and I put my tail between my legs. The next thing I hear, all I can find the Chief Secretary. Chief Secretary missing. Now that concerns me. Because I am the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I need to know what the Chief Secretary is. Anyway, you all may not know this, but I talk to the Chief Secretary quietly from time to time. And just before this Mark bus, we spoke. Spoke for an hour and a half. But I didn't know it had bacchanal. I really noticed a kind of low tone, but I thought he was getting mellow. Me, you know, is video coming out the next day, I said, oh. And I kept my distance. I said, you're going to show up sometime. Because if Liz can't find him, I can't find him. But he's going to show up. Well, he eventually showed up. And all of this I could take. But you know what I can't take? Let me tell you what I can't take. I can't take the lies. And I will not allow the Tobago House of Assembly to put lies on the record where the government and the law is concerned. And let me take you down this, and this is for the benefit of all Tobagonians. Because you need to be educated, because if you are not educated, they will think that you're stupid, and you may very well be if you're not educated, and they take advantage of you. My position is, they could do what they want with their politics. They could name their party whatever they want. They could call Tobago government, Tobago empire. But you see, when it comes to the law, and you want to misrepresent the facts to the people of Tobago, I will come to Tobago, I will miss Clarence's birthday party, but I will educate the people of Tobago. And that's why I'm here tonight. I normally would not talk to you about conversations I have with the Chief Secretary or anybody for that matter, because as Prime Minister, you're talking to people all the time. And you're really a repository of those conversations, because usually the conversations, either immediately or later on, form the basis of decisions you have to make, and therefore you have to order how you let out where you've been and what you know and who you talk to and so on. But on this occasion, I will tell you, because they put out there, as law, lie. When I met with the Chief Secretary recently, it was because he wanted me to do something under the law. You see, the most senior public servant in Tobago is the Chief Administrator. Because notwithstanding all the waily about the secretaries and undersecretaries and whatever, the top executing agency is the office of the Chief Administrator. Because if the administrator doesn't sign off or approve certain things, they cannot be done. The politicians, the executive act through the office of the administrator. Whoever holds that post will be appointed by the Public Service Commission. I thought you all knew that. But clearly Farley doesn't think you know that. Otherwise Farley would know. Certica. Send out Certica to read law book for Tobago to say that the reason why there is no administrator in Tobago is something to do with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister office and trying to run interference for Farley, who gone missing. Now, Certica could not have done that without Farley's permission. And for Farley to send out Certica to mislead the Tobagonians while he himself missing, because people looking for him, it is just quite wrong. It is wrong. Because the average Tobagonian will believe what is fed to them by the Tobago House of Assembly. What are the facts? You need to know the facts. Because today yesterday was exactly 1 month. Not 1 week or 1 day, you know. Yesterday was exactly 1 month that there has not been a chief administrator in Tobago. And the only thing that has happened in the context of that is that Farley sent out Certica with law book to quote law for you. To say how, and then to say, is some plan to destabilize the assembly. Could anything destabilize the assembly more than the missing chief secretary? And we, at the level of the central government, I as Prime Minister and my government, my cabinet, we are supposed to take the blame for what they have done. Well, that is not going to happen. I'm going to call them out every time they lie and every time they break the law. What are the facts? The chief administrator is appointed by the Public Service Commission. And how does the Public Service Commission decide who they will settle on? But they can't appoint the person just so. Under the law, when they decide who was the next person in line, they have to send that to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has to consult with the Chief Secretary, if you could find him. But I found him. And only if the Prime Minister signs off on a no objection can a person be appointed to that position. You think they ever told you that? Did they ever tell you that? So the chief administrator was leaving because she was due to go out because of retirement. There are 6 letters between the beginning of this, what has come to pass, and the 15th of June, which is 4 days ago. This is 19th, right? The last letter came on the 15th, and I'll tell you about that. The first letter in dealing with the issue of a chief administrator, but let me just tell you something else, because I have to educate Tobagonians. There are 2 centers of authority in Tobago. One is the Tobago House of Assembly, and the most senior public servant there is the chief administrator. There's a small office in Tobago called Central Administrative Services Limited, CAST, that is under the office of the Prime Minister, and there's a permanent secretary there. But in the public service, those 2 positions are under the authority of the public service at about the same level. When it was time to deal with the vacancy that will arise by the chief administrator having to vacate the position because of retirement, something happened. On the 16th of November, 2022, and listen to these dates very carefully, because you have to leave here or wherever you are home, after this meeting you must be educated. On the 16th of November 2022, the office of the Chief Secretary, and Sertica, I want you to listen to this. The office of the Chief Secretary, which is led by the administrator, the chief administrator wrote to the PS at CAST, wrote to the PS at the Prime Minister office. The chief administrator wrote to the PS at the Prime Minister's office for the PS at CAST to meet with some forensic auditor, and that letter was signed by the chief administrator, 16th of November 2022. On the 28th of November, a letter came from the PS, the administrator at CAST, to the PS at the office of the Prime Minister for guidance, and he requested legal assistance because he had to go as requested before this forensic auditor, who was somebody from outside the public service. On the 1st of December 2022, the PS in the office of the Prime Minister replied to the administrator at CAST in Tobago. No, only listen to me. I carry on this meeting. Let me go over it again. The chief administrator at THA wrote to the permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's office requesting that the administrator at CAST, the administrator at CAST, who's at PS rank, that person is to meet with a forensic auditor. That person on the 28th, right? That being the Prime Minister's office with a PS administrator there, he wrote the PS OPM in Port of Spain asking for guidance and for legal assistance. The PS there replied to him on the 1st of December 2022. There's another letter on the 17th of May, on the 17th of May, which happens to be the last day that the chief administrator is in office. The chief administrator wrote to the Director of Public Administration, DPA, with a list of charges against the PS at CAS. That is May 17th. Now look what's happening here. This administrator is leaving on the 17th. So from the morning of the 18th, there is nobody there. Right? But having written to the DPA saying that the person who is next in line from CAS is now on a suite of charges for allegations of misconduct, right? What the Public Service Commission had put in place before that letter from the Chief Administrator reached was an arrangement to have an administrator take up the job from the 18th of May. The Public Service Commission had put that arrangement in place. And how did they do that? They, using the public service law and the Constitution, they identified the person to step into the job on the 18th of May. And that person was so advised. However, that advice will go under the understanding that the Prime Minister will. Up to this point, nothing had come to the Prime Minister personally, except for what I just told you about that to and fro in there between the allegations and CAS and the. Because remember I told you it has to come from the Public Service Commission to the Prime Minister, and it's only if the Prime Minister doesn't object, that person picks up the job from the 18th, and Tobago has an administrator, and there's a smooth transition going forward. But when on the 17th, the Commission is told that this person is now under charges for misconduct, the Commission now has to hold the horses, pull it up, and stop what they had put in place to take place from the 18th of May. And remember, those letters and those things started where? Started in November from the office of the Chief Secretary. I was leaving the country on the 7th of May. And it was just as I was about to leave the compound, I was told about this development, that there was something happening in Tobago which could result in what is resulting, because the Public Service Commission could not now send that name to the Prime Minister, even though they had sent it and it got as far as the PS, because the public service letter arrived there about the same day as the administrator's letter. So Public Service Commission saying, this gentleman is to take up from the 18th, administrator saying, this gentleman under allegations for misconduct. And then one more letter followed, a letter on the 15th, and I want to read that for you, because you were listening to Certica reading thing for you. Let me read, you see that headline there? Those of you with good eyes. It says Public Service Commission. Right? That is the commission who will select a person who will go to the job. But before I read this, I met Fali. Fali came to see me. Because we, under law, we are supposed to meet and talk. And we have been meeting and talking. The law requires that. The law says we must do that. And we've been doing that. Fali came to see me. to ask me to give a no objection to a person of his choice. No problem. That is how we operate at this level of management in the country. He thought he had a good choice to recommend. He raised it with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is not a beast. I listened to him. I said to him, I have no objection to the person there, and if that is what you would want, I was prepared. I never know is blackball the man here. Because they had to blackball that man for this one to come in. Farley came to see me. We talked for an hour and a half. And Farley never told me about those developments I just told you there. And then has the temerity, when it blew up in our faces now, to send out Certica to come and read law for you, to tell you Farley could not know anything about this. It's the Prime Minister who knows everything about it, and therefore the Prime Minister and his office responsible for you not having a chief administrator. Certica, you're fast, out of place, and untruthful. Because the administration has been working as it should, because the gentleman's name was coming to me for no objection. I could tell you all now, in case you all don't know, if that gentleman walks through that door there now, I don't know him. But if he's a public servant, and the Public Service Commission puts his name as the next person in line, and I have nothing to say no about, there's no objection. But of course, I wasn't to know that on the 15th of May, the administrator on her way through the door signed off on a number of charges against the man. Let me read for you what that has caused. This letter is dated the 15th of June. 15th of June. When did Certica adjust the nation? Last week. Right. But this is the Public Service Commission writing to me on the 15th of June. And it says here, I refer to my letter dated, and listen to the date. Remember, the vacancy is going to arise on the morning of the 18th of May. The commission took action to make sure that there was no vacuum there. But now something happened, and the commission has to react. I refer to my letter dated the 16th of May, 2023, wherein the Public Service Commission sought to consult with you in accordance with the provisions of and the code of law, where this person is to act as administrator, as chief administrator, from the 17th of May to September 2023. So if the commission was allowed to proceed without interference from the chief secretary and the administrator, good interference because the man is now under charges. From the 17th of May, the next administrator would have been in to continue to act, and Tobago had an administrator. But because the charges were proffered to the DPA, at that date, the commission quickly has to withdraw the man's name, and now a real vacancy now exists. And then I realized that the person that I was asked to support can now come in. Because a proper vacancy has now, the commission has no choice. Because the person next in line has now been interdicted by actions of the Tobago House of Assembly. Because remember, it started with a requirement to meet with the forensic auditor. Out of this forensic auditor, which this I only hear about it, somewhere there exists some report by this auditor which is known only to people in the assembly. So here it is. The most senior person in the office of the Prime Minister in Tobago is to be put on a series of charges for misconduct based on an audit that Farley has, and Farley doesn't have the decency to let the Prime Minister know that or to even give him a copy of the report. come and talk to me for an hour and a half and doesn't let me know that the most senior officer in the Prime Minister's office in Tobago is to be interdicted. And as a result of that, the most senior officer in the Assembly is now to be chosen by my agreement, not knowing how this came about. And of course, this vacancy having been created in law, a new person has to be appointed. Guess what? That same time, the deputy chairman of the Service Commission, his term ends. The commission cannot meet without the deputy chairman. A deputy chairman has to be appointed. That person has to be appointed by the president after a series of consultations with the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. All that has to go on, because this second vacancy, right, clash with a vacancy on the commission. And that is why you have no administrator in Tobago. I trust that in the next few days, that will end. Because in the intervening period, the consultation has taken place. I have given my no objection. I presume the opposition leader probably would have given her position one way or the other. It falls to the president after the consultation with these two offices to appoint a person to fill the vacancy on the Service Commission, and only then can the commission act. So the vacancy has been filled. And the first thing the commission does, now that it can act, is to tell the person in Tobago that they withdraw the letter of the 16th of May and that to cease to report for work. That's how it goes. The commission, based on the information provided about this misconduct from the Tobago, the commission now properly tells the person, sorry, the letter I gave you on the 16th of May to act as chief administrator is withdrawn and you are to cease to report for work. The administrator in the office of caste is now interdicted. We now have to go, and I expect when I get back to Trinidad tomorrow or sometime during the week, a letter will come to me from the Service Commission, and depending on what the name is, who the person is, I will have to consult with the Chief Secretary. If it is the same person, that he had brought to me, well, we consult already. And he know my position. If it's somebody else, we have to consult again. And while that is so, I have to listen to a member of the Tobago House of Assembly, namely Sertika Orr, who the PNM dealt with on a number of occasions in Plymouth, coming out with law book and trying to tell you that this situation is as a result of the Prime Minister. The first letter in May, early May, had never reached to me because it was by the PS on its way to me when it was acted upon by the letter coming from the administrator saying that the man who you are about to deal with is now going to be put on charges. So I didn't see it at all. Doesn't exist. This now is telling me about the situation, and I now have to wait until something comes to me. So why then should the people in Tobago, after they create the situation, because you know what they've done? They found that there was a problem of whatever in the business of the assembly, and they're calling a forensic auditor. I have no problem with that. But speak the truth to the people of Tobago. And if you have an audit report upon which you are acting, sufficient to remove the most senior public servant in Tobago and create this crisis in Tobago, then you must tell me that a report exists somewhere. And of course, some people have it to act on it. Our man, the minority leader who we have, I don't know if he's seen it or if he heard about it. I don't know if the media in Tobago know about it, but it's being acted upon. And the most senior public servant in Tobago in the office of the Prime Minister has been removed, and a proper vacancy now exists. So we have to wait. So if tomorrow or the day after or next week you hear anybody in Tobago saying it is because the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister, they lie. You understand? And then Farley comes out yesterday or whenever and did the most amazing thing. And it's not a laughing matter. Up to this point, I have spoken to him on the phone, we communicate on WhatsApp, and we sit down and talk. Telling you all from tonight, I'm having nothing to do with Farley unless there's a third party present. You would have heard, it took him 3 weeks to come up with that Nancy story he came up with the last week. But here what the story is. That 2 senior government ministers give you $100 million to give their friend in Tobago and tell him to give the friend. And the friend blackmailing he. And the two senior ministers, I suspect that the 2 senior ministers is the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. He said that, right? What are the facts? Ladies and gentlemen, it was not that we was giving Farley money to give any friends of ours. People of Trinidad and Tobago, you see these lying politicians? It's a disease. And you have to take a medicine for them. You would have known that we came into office September 2015. By Christmas that year, oil price was down $28, and one day it came to zero. Remember that story? Yes. We had lost billions of dollars from our revenue. I did something called Spotlight. Mind your business, remember that story? Where I showed you how in 1 year, 2 years, we lost $20 billion from the revenue. The UNC government, their last budget, their revenue was over $50 million. Ours, when we came in the following budget year, we were dealing with less than $40 million. So $20 billion was short. And then up comes COVID. We had to borrow $13 billion to keep some people even having food in this country. We had to give the business sector, we had to pay off all the VAT one time, we had to send food home in people's house. $13 billion we borrowed. And there were those who said, well, the country bankrupt because we could not pay that back. Remember that story? In that scenario, one of the things that was happening is that government agencies in Trinidad and Tobago were owing a lot of people and could not pay because government didn't have money to give them to pay for the goods and services that they had already incurred or they were incurring. So as things got better, when 2 things happened, oil and gas price rose, and we had done some significant negotiations for new payment arrangements, which were putting some more money into the coffers. By August of 2022, the Minister of Finance was reporting that we had earned significant revenues during that fiscal year, and we will begin to do certain things. One of the things that we had to do was to assist government agencies to pay off the debt that they incurred. And let me tell you something. Anybody in this country with a problem that they can't get an answer or a solution from the government department, you know who they call? Prime Minister. Man, woman, and child. Once the system doesn't work, people are losing their businesses, they're losing their homes because government owe them. And please, 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 people begging to be paid. Initially, the money was not there, or we couldn't borrow. The overdraft was 95%. And during the period of 2020, 2021, 2022, we're focusing on saving lives, pandemic action. As soon as we got out of that situation, what did the government do? Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, we meet regularly to deal with these matters. let us find some money and get some money to the agencies to pay off those debts. And you will ask them, what do you owe and who do you owe? If you take a position that you're going to clear off the debt, wouldn't you want to know what they owe and who they're going to pay? Not down to the granular detail, but you have to give some kind of idea if you want to say, well, I need 100 million, I need $1 billion. And listen, would you believe one government agency, the HDC, was owing $1 billion to people, many of whom were small and medium-sized contractors. The government took steps to borrow, because at that time we could have borrowed a bit more because the overdraft had come down and we were getting a better inflow of revenues. We borrowed $1 billion and we made that available to the HDC. They have already spent $700 million clearing debt. We gave the Ministry of Works and MTS, who also had a body of people who they owed, they got another $500 million to clear debt. And in this debt clearing that we were doing, WASA got a block to clear debt, because we know the debt was incurred during a period when they could not pay. And of course, the Tobago House of Assembly, we didn't leave them out. We didn't ignore them. They got $100 million to clear debt that was incurred under the development program that had taken place in Tobago. Instead of Farley coming and tell you that the government, the central government has done that, he come to tell you that we give him money to give his friend and to tell him how much to pay the friend and so on and so on. That is a man not to be trusted. That is a man not to be trusted. Because I would not go into any detail of the conversation I've had with Farley, but to think that he could come and tell you that the money we gave him is to pay friends. I'm advised that the company that he is waging war against in Tobago, incidentally, that has laid off 300 people, a Tobago contractor laying off 300 people because they have PNM haters in office. There was one gentleman who is the father of one of them in the assembly who said, I hate the PNM. But his son have authority in Tobago, waging war against contractors. I could tell you I came from the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago here, this afternoon, this evening, tonight. I just came from there. That building was built under my stewardship, opposed by the UNC. But it was my view that as long as this country is Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago, there must be a place in Tobago for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I built it. It was built by a Tobago contractor, and I'm so proud of the job he has done there. Many of you would have been there in 2019 when I invited you there for Christmas. You saw the place. That was built by a Tobago contractor. But you know what the story was? The story from the UNC was that it was built by this same contractor who Farley hating, and I give him the job because me and his friend. Lie, you know. That building was built by a Tobago contractor. I think his name is Parks. If Mr. Parks walked in this room now, I don't know him. You understand? But I know of the job he has done. But there are people who would lie to you. Ain't like that. And that contractor built it using Tobago labor. I take pride in a Tobago contractor being able to do that. So when we send money to Tobago for the development program, it is meant largely to be spent on the people of Tobago by the people of Tobago, and that is how the allocation goes across the whole country. But if you have leaders who will take the allocation and give it to other contractors in Trinidad through subterfuge, then you're taking bread out of the mouth of the people of Tobago, because there are provisions in Trinidad, right? So Farley waging war against them in Tobago. So they leave Tobago and they come to Trinidad, trying to get work in Trinidad. Kamala waging war against them in Trinidad. What are you saying? That they shouldn't work in this country. That's what they're saying. But what about the 300 people who they laid off? What about them? They must pay the price for that too. So you see, we have a problem. And the problem is that our leaders believe that they come to stay, or there's an entitlement. I could simply say to my friends that, whatever they call themselves, they are now understanding that popularity is very ephemeral, very temporary. And if you don't believe me, go ask Jesus Christ. There was waving palm, wele. 3 days later, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. And when they had the option to choose, you want him or Barabbas? Give us Barabbas. They will learn that. They will learn that. But I am so disappointed because I went out of my way to ensure that my government cannot be truthfully accused of not cooperating, not assisting, not coming to the defense of Tobago. But tonight I want to say here in Calder Hall that as long as my oath of office remains in force, and it does so as long as I'm the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Tobago will not be abandoned and will not be left in the hands of those people. Because you have in office at central government a responsible group of people who know what governance is and what good administration is. There's no way the PNM would ever be found in this situation. None. But you see, sometimes you have to put your finger in the wound to feel it. I told you all about Duke, you didn't believe me. But even Duke himself didn't believe himself. Huh? If I had told Watson that Farley was going to do that, he would have told me, like PNM will talk. Yeah? But you go and feed snake and want to make a pet of it. Nobody has ever made a pet of a snake. Right? Because you know what he does? It bites you. That's his nature. Right? So this thing that's happening in Tobago, the PNM wants no part of the dotish politics. We have beaten all comers in the political arena. Every single one of them. And when we do not get the acclaim of the population, we go into the opposition, we gather our forces, and we come back in Trinidad and Tobago. And we will come back in Tobago as the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening. As a matter of fact, having been in this vineyard for so many seasons, I could tell you, some of the most loyal and some of the most intelligent political beings in this country are the PNM supporters in Tobago. And it is only because we have the strength of our organization that we function by a constitution that we could have come back from 11-1 to 12-0. That's our record. We are not a pick-up side fighting to find what to call ourselves. We have a name. We are the People's National Movement. And we pride ourselves in fighting every election, every seat, from Charlottesville to Cedros, from Carenage to Bonaccord. That is our record as we're doing now in Trinidad in the local government election. And the 2 MPs in Tobago until the next general election are PNM MPs, and the government is a PNM government, and we are the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And who don't like that could put it in their pipe and smoke it. We are not going to stand aside and remain silent or put our fingers on our lips when Tobago's business is being so misrepresented, when you could have this situation where there is no administrator for a month and then the officers coming, you send some little imp to come out and lie to the public that something has gone wrong in the Prime Minister's office, when in fact it is your hate and spite of the PNM. And those who got work under the PNM, for God's sake, the PNM was here for 20 years. And you get vexed because during that 20-year period, some Tobago contractors work for the THA. Who you wanted them to work for? If in a 20-year period, Tobago contractors work for the THA, isn't that a good thing? So why you hate them so far? And there's one letter. The Minister of Finance just sent it to me on my phone. The same 100 million that he say we give him because we in some cahoots to give our friend. You know, in July, they wrote a letter in July because the Minister of Finance was asking everybody, what do you owe? And when they settle the kind of figure, say, okay, request it. Because the government doesn't just go. There are procedures. The THA wrote requesting that money in July. Remember I told you the payments was going on in August? In July they wrote about their circumstances. You know what they said in that letter? You will not believe this. After what Farley said there. They told the Minister of Finance that they owe the Warners $88 million. That isn't a letter. But you come on the platform and say, they're greedy, and they're this, and they're that. Which little Tobago company could absorb that kind of behavior and $88 million? They told that to the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance gave them $100 million to deal with the whole question. Because, you know, once the money comes to Tobago, that's what the autonomy is. They're free to determine how they pay it out. Farley, I have not seen the documents, but I'm told they paid either 20-something or it's a 25 million. I don't know. I'm just told that. But if you say they owe them 88 million, the Minister of Finance give you 100 million for them and others, and you pay them 25 billion. Why did Farley choose to bring that up to explain his absence? They catch you talking police business. You, like Arnold Roberts, don't know your own voice. You take 21 days to find out it's you. And when you come now, you tell Liz, I will speak. And when I speak, all those who I will implicate will cover for their behind, because I will exonerate all of them. And I'm saying this gentleman doesn't know what he's doing, because police talking to you and Zeraisha, you telling the police it's not me alone, you know, it have more of them. You know, long time in Tobago, when we used to have condensed milk in tin, and he used to punch 2 holes, one here and one there, and he used to take a piece of paper and cork the holes, right? And then sometimes you take some condensed milk and put it in your hand, right? Or you put it in my mouth and suck it out, right? And when they catch you, Mommy, it's not me. Joel, take some too. Farley has implicated the entire executive in a conspiracy, right? But I'm waiting. I bought a townhouse down on Shervan Road for $1.2 million. Pay for it from my savings. As a result of that, as I speak to you now, I'm the subject of an investigation by the Integrity Commission. Because according to them, I should have paid $1.6 million. And therefore, the man gave me a gift of $400,000. I must be the only idiot who was buying townhouse before it built in Shervan Road. And all of a sudden, the Integrity Commission must tell them how much to charge me for it. Not that the seller and the buyer could agree on a price, you know, but they want to tell their UNC friends that I am under investigation, right? I want to know if the Integrity Commission know that Farley say it's all of them. I want to know that. You see, because you could talk stupidness, but if you know the law, you would know how to protect yourself by observing the law. But what is happening in Tobago? Lawlessness and lies go together. And that is why they could go and build bridge in the sea, go building road, awarding contract without town and country approval. and then come and say, Tongue and Country Act, EMA approval, sorry. EMA approval don't apply in Tobago. But let me tell you all something. I was going to mine a few sheep and a piece of land that my father and my grandfather used to work on in Alma. I had to get EMA approval. I go and spend my money, bring sheep from Barbados, pay a boat, come down here. EMA would give me my approval. I lost $65,000. EMA approval. And when the sheep arrive in Tobago, they say, you bring them without our approval, we fine you $15,000. All of a sudden I hear EMA don't have no approval, no authority in Tobago. But if I didn't know that, then I'd have chased them from my land. But when you talk nonsense, it's one thing. When you act on your nonsense, it's another thing. So when they go and say they're building road without EMA approval and they get the legal letter to go to court now to spend your money in the courthouse, you call that powerful, stupid. So let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. I stand by the law because I took an oath of office, and that is part of the requirement of the law. Old talk is cheap. Tobago talk is very entertaining. But the law is there for all of us. So who will have courthouse clothes will go to the courthouse naked. So ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted you all to know that what you're hearing from these people are far from the facts. And they will do anything or say anything because the UNC tell them that is a narrative that you could use. My grandmother always said, show me your friends, I will tell you your character. You saw the UNC in Trinidad? Police hold a man. Man was out there, big banner in front of him. He is UNC candidate for this seat. We know who he's fighting because they say so. All of them in the yellow, police hold him. UNC say, we don't know he. A simple thing like that. Rather than take a position that if that is his conduct, the law must take its course. Everybody innocent until they're proven guilty. But you have to lie. You go and interfere with the arrangement in place. 1 month we can't get an administrator, is the Prime Minister's office. But I'm not surprised. I expected that. Because we told them so. I told you so. I see the running Duke in Roxborough today. I told you so. But you know what's annoying today in Roxborough? They start to say it's Duke and the PNM. What you calling PNM name with Duke for? What you calling our name with Duke for? I mean, I could tell you where Duke is. I could tell you where he's. Look, let me stop. But seriously, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you in this Tobago, you are a beacon to the nation. Doesn't matter who you vote for at election time. Tobago has a reputation for good. Let us keep that reputation. And you of the PNM, you have a record. You have a record of progress. Let us continue to be the PNM. So tonight, have no fear. Stand on the high standards. Stand up for Tobago and stand up for Trinidad and Tobago. And when you do that, every time you do that, you can only remember, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
PNM family, or Prime Minister and political leader of the People's National Movement, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Let's hear it for our Prime Minister. We are not a pickup side. We are the People's National Movement. We fight every election in every seat in Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, you have seen and experienced governance under the People's National Movement. And you are currently experiencing governance under this Farley-led Tobago House of Assembly. 21 years of delivery versus 19 months of broken promises, bacchanal, and confusion. 21 years of greater opportunities versus 19 months of opportunities taken away from employees, contractors, hardship and pain for Tobagonians. 21 years of predictability and stability in governance versus 19 months of instability, lies, deceit, deception, and destruction. 21 years of building public trust in the institutions of the Assembly, fostering good relations with financial institutions on the island, versus 19 months of erosion of that trust, good relations. Now employees and contractors cannot face the bank or cannot get funding easily from the financial institutions. 21 years of building capacity of Tobago businesses. 19 months to destroy Tobago businesses and spirit away our entire development program budget of $300 million, building another economy. Tobagonians, it is time to take back. It is time to rise. It is time to tell Farley and friends they must go. Farley and friends. Farley and friends. So Farley, we are coming. We are coming. We are coming, and your administration has failed Tobago. You need to vacate office now. You need to allow the people of Tobago to vote for individuals who can restore good governance and decency. People, the people's national movement is ready to take back governance. Brothers and sisters, you have been a wonderful audience. The PNM is ready. Pick up your Gideon boots. We are ready to take back Tobago. PNM, are you ready? Yes. PNM, are you ready? Yes. We want to thank you for being an awesome audience this evening. There are some very light refreshments available for you, so please don't head out too quickly. We want to thank our political leader and the Prime Minister for being here. Brothers and sisters, give it up for our Prime Minister. We want to thank all our speakers, the Tobago Council political leader, Mr. Ancil Dennis, our MP for Tobago East and Tobago West, Ms. Shamfa Kajo and Ms. Ayana Webster-Roy, as well as our minority leader, Mr. Kelvon Morris. We also want to thank Senator Lawrence Hislop for the prayer, and we thank all of you for coming out this evening. Get your shoes ready. We are on the move to restore good governance. Have a good evening and get home safely.